All right, so in this video, we're going to talk about something called percent change. So you're going to be determining if something is a percent increase or a percent decrease, and by how much. So let's go ahead and get started by looking at the formula. So this is the formula for percent change. So here, if you remember from the beginning of the year, these are going to be absolute value bars. And remember, absolute value is how far away a number is away from zero. So on the top, you're going to have the absolute value of the new value minus the old value. And that'll make sense in just a minute. Then you're going to divide it by the old value and multiply it times 100. Now, the reason why we multiply it times 100 is because that is going to turn it into a percent for us. So this part of the equation right here is going to give us a decimal, but we're trying to figure out the percent, so we're going to multiply it times 100. Now, if you didn't want to multiply times 100, you could just move the decimal point over 2 places to the right. You want to make sure that you add a percent sign at the end of your answer, and then you're going to determine if it's an increase or a decrease based on the given information. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So here we have two examples that are just very basic. They're not real world examples. They're just some basic numbers here, okay? So we're going to have the absolute value, and if you remember, we're going to do the new value minus the old value. So new 180 minus the old 300, close the absolute value bars, over the old value, which is 300, okay? And then times 100. Now, you can't do all this in one step, so go ahead and you can grab your calculator, and you can do 180 minus 300. That's going to give you negative 120. But remember, you need the absolute value of it, okay? So that's going to equal 120. That's for our top part right here, okay? Now, so we have 120 over 300 times 100. Order of operations is going to tell you to do the division first. So 120 divided by 300 is going to give you 0.4 times 100, and that's going to give you 40, and add your percent sign. Now, we need to figure out if it's an increase or a decrease, and that's pretty simple. So you go back up to the original amount and then the new amount. So did this go down or did it go up? Well, from the original amount to the new amount, it went down, and so that is going to be a decrease. The other way that you can figure out if it's a decrease or an increase is if you get a negative number for this top part right here, that's going to be a decrease. And if you get a positive number, that's going to be an increase. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. So here again, we're going to have the new amount, 92, minus the old amount, divided by the old amount times 100. So you're going to do 92 minus 50, and that's going to give you positive 42. And the absolute value of positive 42 is just simply 42. Now, you're going to have 42 over 50 times 100. So 42 over 50 is going to give you 0.84. And when you multiply that times 100, you're going to get 84. And make sure you add a percent sign on the end. Now, again, is this an increase or a decrease? So there's two ways. So first off, go back up to the original amount. So from the original to the new, did it go up or down? Well, in this case, it went up. But the other way you can tell is if you get a positive number from this top part, it is an increase. All right, let's do another example. So here we have we have absolute value of 35 minus 140 over 140 times 100. So 35 minus 140 is going to give you negative 105, but that's going to be the absolute value of negative 105, which is simply 105. So we have 105 over 140 times 100. So when you do 105 divided by 140, you're going to get 0.75 times 100, which is 75, and make sure you add your percent sign. Because remember, the entire point of multiplying times 100 is to turn it into a percent. Okay? Now, is it an increase or a decrease? So remember, two ways to figure it out. From our original amount to our new amount, we went down. So that's going to be a decrease. The other way you could figure it out is inside your absolute value bars here, you ended up with a negative number. So that's also going to tell you that that's a decrease. All right, next one. So we have the absolute value of our new amount minus our old amount divided by our old amount times 100. So 645 minus 500 is going to be the absolute value of 145, and that's simply 145. So we have 145 over 500 times 100. Now, 145 divided by 500 is 0.29, and we multiply times 100 to make it a percent, and so that's going to be 29%. Now, again, is it an increase or a decrease? Well, right here we ended up with a positive number, so in the absolute value bars, so we know that that's going to say increase. And we also went from 500 to 645, so that's also going to tell us that that's an increase. So there's two ways to check to see if it's an increase or a decrease. All right, so go ahead and try these two on your own. All right, so let's look at these two. So for the first one, You did 76 minus 400, which gave you the absolute value of negative 324. So that's automatically going to tell you that you have a decrease. When you did 324 divided by 400, you should have gotten 0.81. And when you make that a percent, you get 81%. So that's an 81% decrease. Now for the next one, we had 581 minus 350, which gave you the absolute value of 231. Now that's positive, so that's going to tell you that that's an increase. When you did 231 divided by 350, that's going to give you 0.66 times 100 is going to give you 66%. And again, that is an increase. So now that we've just messed around with some basic numbers, let's look at what this would look like in a real world problem. So Anne works in a supermarket for $10 per hour. Her pay is increased to $12 per hour. So what is the percent change, and is it an increase or a decrease? Okay, so remember, I'm going to go back a couple slides here. We're going to take the new value minus the old value at the top. Okay, so, and I'll write that down. New minus old over the old. Okay, so her new value is $12 an hour. So the absolute value of 12 minus, and her old amount is 10, over the old amount, which is 10. And you could add the 0.00, that's not going to make a difference. And then all that times 100. So 12 minus 10 is going to give you the absolute value of 2, which is just 2. So we have 2 over 10 times 100. So 2 over 10 is going to give you 0.2 times 100 is going to give you 20%. Now, based on that situation, it should be pretty easy to determine if it's an increase or a decrease. Well, her pay went up overall. Also, we ended up with a positive number here, so that's going to be an increase. All right, so I'm going to rewrite that up here. New minus old over old. I'll put the absolute value bars there. Okay, 3 feet are cut from a 12-foot board. Now, you have to be very careful when you read this one. So the new value is not 3 and it's not 12. If 3 feet are cut off from a 12-foot board, how much is left? Well, 12 minus 3 is 9, okay? So the new value is 9 minus the old value is 12 over the old value times 100. All right, so we have 9 minus 12, which is going to be the absolute value of negative 3. Absolute value of negative 3 is simply 3. Now that I got a negative there, though, I'm automatically going to know that this is a decrease. Also, based on the context of the problem, I'm cutting a piece of wood, so I'm obviously taking something away, okay? So I have 3 over 12 times 100. So 3 divided by 12 is going to give you 0.25. And then, let's do times 100, and that's going to make it the percent, and that's going to be 25%. So I decreased the size of the board by 25%. All right, let's look at the next one. And I'll rewrite the formula up here for you. New minus old over old. Okay, until recently, Manuel owned 2,960 acres of farmland. This year, he sold the old land and purchased a new plot of land that is 2,368 acres in size. Okay, so the new value, his new plot of land, is 2,368 minus the old is 2,960. All of that over 2,960 times 100. Now, based on the context of the problem, you can see that his old plot of land was much bigger than his new plot of land. So you should automatically see that we are going to decrease. But in a minute, you're also going to see that we'll get a negative number when we subtract these two. So you're going to do 2,368 minus 2,960 in your calculator. And you'll get the absolute value of negative 592 over, oops, not yet, I'm skipping a step. Sorry, the absolute value of negative 592 is 592. So we have 592 over the bottom number, which is 2,960. And we're going to multiply that times 100 eventually. So we have 592 divided by 2960, and that's going to give us 0.2. Multiply times 100, that's going to give us our percent, and that's going to be 20%. So his plot of land decreased by 20%. Okay, let me rewrite the formula up here for you. New minus old over old times 100. Okay, several years ago, Amy bought some gold valued at $1,030 per ounce. When she went to sell it, it was worth $1,854 per ounce. Okay, so our new value is what she went to sell it for. That's 1,854 minus the old value, 1,030. And that's all going to be over the old value times 100. Now you can see that when she went to go sell it, it was obviously increased in price. And so that's going to be an increase. But the second way that you know that it's an increase is when we subtract these two numbers, we're going to get a positive number. 1,854 minus 1,030. And that's going to give us the absolute value of 824, which is simply 824. So we have 824 over 1,030, and we're going to multiply that times 100 eventually. So 824 divided by 1,030, and that's going to give us 0.8 times 100. That's going to make it the percent, and that's 80%. All right, you go ahead and try this one here. All right, so if you're not done, make sure you pause the video. So here we're talking about some skis at a sports store. So they're on sale for $476. That's our new price. If the original price, that's another word for old, was $560, what discount rate does this represent? So we're going to do our new minus our old at the top, which is negative 84, the absolute value of negative 84, which should automatically tell you that it's a decrease, okay? Also, if something goes on sale, it's usually decreasing in price. So we have 84 over 560, that's 0.15, and when we multiply it times 100, we get 15%. So this was 15% off the original price. Okay, go ahead and try this one here. All right, go ahead and pause the video if you're not done. So this is talking about the fine for entering a national forest. And so without a permit. And so it increased, the fine increased, and so that literally tells you the answer right in the problem, and sometimes that will happen. It increased from 65 to 78. So the new cost is 78 minus 65. That's going to give you an absolute value of positive 13, which is also going to tell you that it's an increase. So 13 over 65 is 0.2 times 100 is 20%. So the fine went up 20%. All right, that is the end of this lesson, and we will do more practice in class.